If I was to ask you, who are you beyond the body and the mind? I think by now, if you're on this YouTube channel, most of you would answer pretty much correctly, right? You're going to say, I'm a soul. But what is that really? Who are you really beyond the body and the mind? That's what today's video is all about. And side note, next week's video, we're going to explore how to align with your soul, which is what you really are, and what that means. And it's going to require us going beyond just a figure of speech, right? Because to align with your soul is an action. It's a doing. And that's not really what the soul is up to. What the soul is up to is being. So let's talk about exactly what that is. The self, the soul. So let's start with what it is not, and how you can tell when whatever that is, what the soul is not, is in operation. So you're a three-part triune being: body, mind, soul. The body, we're pretty clear on that. The mind. Well, the mind is a subcomponent. It's a machine all unto itself. The three-part triune being, body, mind, soul, you could say is the human machine, but it's made up of other components, of which the mind is one. And it too is kind of a mechanism. So you've got thinking, thoughts, you've got emotions, you've got chakras, those little energy centers, and then you have this energetic body of retained thought and emotional patterns that you've been accumulating since you were a child. They call that the ego, the personality, the identity entity. In the ancient Zen traditions, they've often referred to it as the separate self, and I'll explain why shortly. So, all of these different components make up what we ordinarily call the mind. You could call it the astral body. But where it is that we humans derive our sense of self from is the ego, the collection of retained thought and emotional patterns. And it's literally like a cloud of energy that surrounds you. So if you've ever heard of people who can see auras, they're basically looking at your mind, is what they are looking at. This cloud of retained thought and emotional patterns. Now, to be in a state of unconsciousness is to derive your sense of self from that cloud, from that identity entity, the ego mind, the old tape recordings, mental and emotional patterns that have accumulated since you were a little kid. And to believe that that is who you are is to believe that you are a story thus. Right? So I am a teacher, I am a doctor, I am a truck driver, I'm a cook, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a parent, I'm a child, I'm a sibling, I am conservative, I am liberal, I am neither. I've been to these places, I've done these things, I've got this information, knowledge that I've memorized, I've got these skills, oh, I don't have those skills. This is who I am. This is what me is, right? Like when you're talking to some stranger on the street, what's one of the first questions they ask you when they want to get to know you? They go, well, what do you do? Right? Then Presumably they want to know what your career is or something like that because it's part of your identity. It's part of the story. And then they want to know, how did you get there? What's the story? What's the history? Right. They want to get to know you, but are they getting to know you? Or are they just getting to know the little me, the ego mind, the personality? And again, this includes emotional narratives, which is what subconsciously drives us and motivates us primarily. That emotional body is our primary sense of self. By the way, Eckhart Tolle has a name for that. He calls it the pain body. Very interesting. So there's the mental narrative, there's the stories and the thinking, but then there's the emotional body, the emotional narrative. So again, what we call the mind is made up of all of these different things. And that's where most people derive their very sense of self from. And again, because the emotional body is so primary, it's such a driving force to motivate you into repeating the same old patterns, to keep doing the same things that you've been doing. And it's like you don't even notice it. And again, to be unconscious is to believe that you are that, and you don't even realize that you're believing that you are that. You just do it. You don't even question it. Yeah, this is who I am. So it's like if you were to say I'm sad, it's because you think you are that which is sad. Now, to kind of bring this all together, to make this all make perfect sense, let's now talk about what the self really is. The soul. So the body and the mind are like a spacesuit that you wear when you come down into density, 3D physical reality. So what would be the astronaut who wears the spacesuit? The real you. And it is consciousness. So if there's thinking and emotions going on, have you ever asked yourself, and I'm sure you have, everybody's done this, why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking about this? Why am I feeling this way? Right. Who's asking? How is it that you can be aware of thoughts and feelings? What is awareness? Consciousness. What is that? Think about it. No pun intended. What is awareness itself? And the only answer that really makes sense is, well, I guess that would be me. It's me. Right, it's the self. And it is the silent witness of thinking and emotion. That's the soul. Now, if you're new here, a quick side note, I don't want to forget to include this. I do have a little side project going on this platform. If you'd care to join me over here, I am building a community of like-minded individuals so that we can live in peace and prosperity. Go check me out over here on this platform. Same name, New World All-Star. All-Star is one word. Go check it out, my friends. More free content over there so that we can all create the new earth together intentionally. Now, back to the topic at hand. The self is not understood. It is experienced. This is so important that I want you to write that down. You can pause the video right here and write that down. The self is not understood. It is experienced. Understanding is thought. And I'm not saying that's bad. That's just what that is. You cannot understand consciousness, and you don't need to. Consciousness, the awareness of thinking and emotion, is the experiencer itself. That's what you are. And here's another interesting thing that I'd like to point out. Many of you might be hearing the words that I'm saying right now, and you're thinking, or are you? Are you thinking? What is you? But nevertheless, we'll just go with that little figure of speech right now. You're sitting there thinking, yeah, what is the soul up to? What is that awareness? What is that consciousness? And you're thinking about it. But notice, when you think about it, you think about the soul, awareness, consciousness, the experiencer, as over there somehow. It's like the mind is looking to it. Like, what is that? I'm here thinking about what is that over there, the consciousness, right? You notice how you might be kind of doing that. You're sitting there thinking about what it is. So there's a subject-object relationship going on. There's me, the thinker, or are you? Nonetheless, like I said, we'll just go with that for right now. The thinker is thinking about what is that. So there's the thinker, and then there's the consciousness. There's a subject and an object in this thought process. So the mind externalizes the self. It externalizes the soul. This is very subtle and deep. So you might watch this part of the video again if you don't quite get it. The mind, because it is duality, it externalizes things. So for example, I've seen people online trying to explain spiritualism, and, they're just trying to be helpful, but you kind of see them making this mistake. They'll say things like, yeah, everybody knows that the soul brings you experiences so that you can learn lessons and grow. Well, now, wait a minute. If I'm the soul, how can the soul be bringing me experiences? So if I'm here and the soul is over there and it's going to bring me experiences, what is the me? So there's a subject-object relationship again. That's how you can tell that it's the mind in operation, because it'll externalize the soul. And the soul is actually at the core of your being. If you think of one of those Russian dolls, the wooden Russian dolls, I don't remember what they're called, but the ones where you keep opening them and there's another doll inside, you know what I'm talking about? Eventually, you're going to get to the core. You're going to get to the one at the very center where there's no more dolls to open up, right? That's you. That's the soul. That's the consciousness. That is the awareness of thoughts and emotions itself. And that's you. You are the silent witness of thinking and emotion. That is the self. And it does not think, it does not feel emotions, it is just consciousness. And this is not debated, by the way. In case you're going, well, I don't know, Kurt, I think the soul, no. Sorry, this is not debated, guys. This is thousands of years old, ancient Zen spiritualism. All the great spiritual masters are in 100% agreement that the soul is consciousness. The self is consciousness, nothing else. It is not thought, it is not emotion. It is experienced, not understood, and it doesn't need to be understood. Once you externalize the soul, right off the bat, that's the mind. It's conceptual to the mind. The mind wants to understand in a conceptual way what it is over there. I'm here, the soul is out there, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. I am me, and the soul is it, and I am figuring it out. Subject-object, externalization. The mind is duality. That's where the yin and yang symbol comes from. Duality. Subject, object. Light, dark, past, future. Good, bad. I like it, I don't like it. Right? The mind, duality, concept, thought, emotion. And identity. The soul, the self, which are technically a little bit different. But from your point of view as the mortal human, the soul is the self. So we'll just go for that, or go with that for right now. It's basically the same thing. Again, from your perspective, it doesn't make any difference. But I suppose you could pick hairs with me over that talking point. But still, the premise is solid. The self is consciousness. That's who you really are. And it is silent. It does no thinking. It's not wondering either. It's not a questioner. It's not asking questions. It isn't seeking. It is simply there existing, being. This is why meditation is the staple of any spiritual practice at all. This is why Eckhart Tolle's seminal work, The Power of Now, is so popular. The name of the first chapter of that book is called You Are Not Your Mind. You're not the pain body, you're not emotions, you're not thoughts, concepts, questions. You are simply that which experiences right now. And you, the real you, is experiencing thoughts, emotions, questions. You could be trying to argue with me about some of the things I'm saying. That's not you. And you can argue with me if you want, but I'm simply pointing out to you that that's not you. You are not the questioner. You are not the debater. You are simply the silent witness. That stillness, consciousness, that is the self. And it's at the center, like the Russian doll. It's the core. It's the astronaut who wears the spacesuit of the questioner, the thinker, the emotional feeler. But it's not you. You are what's inside the spacesuit of emotions, thoughts, and the body. You are being and existing, and that is all that you are doing. That's the self. Remember that. This is a remembrance. Thank you for watching.